Hi, Selena. It's really nice to see you. Thank you so much for joining me today. Um,
Hi, thank you for having me.
Not at all. I really appreciate you giving some of your time to us. It's really fantastic. So thank you so much for that. So we're going to have a little chat today about your experience at Reading and what it was like being a student in the Department of English Literature, and we'll also talk a bit about what you're doing now and kind of the sorts of things you've been up to since. And I was looking back. I even looked you up on RISIS. That's how far back I went to check, because we've had a bit of a chat about what you're doing now. But I looked you up, and so I noticed that you graduated in July of 2020. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
So kind of 4 and a bit years ago now. Does it feel like
Yeah.
a long time ago?
It feels really, really weird. It feels like it was yesterday, but at the same time, so much has happened since.
Sure.
It's a strange experience. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So it feels in some ways quite immediate, but also you've done a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
you've done a huge amount since you left Reading as well, which is really exciting, interesting. So it must have, yeah, that must register as well, just the amount of time it takes to fit all of that in. Could we start off? Could I just ask you to tell me a little bit about what you're doing now? So what
Yeah.
kind of job you're in at the moment?
Yeah. So currently I'm working as a tax analyst consultant at Deloitte, which has been an incredible but unexpected experience for me.
Mm,
But I'm doing a 2-year program at the moment in training for the ATT qualification. And what our team specifically do is we advise companies on the tax side of things when it comes to mergers and acquisitions, particularly for shareholders. So it's quite a niche kind of
mm,
area, but it's been so interesting to get involved in, particularly because it's more sort of in the nature of consultancy. So it is all about communication and advising to the client. So it still fitted in to
mm.
my areas of interest. It's always been in communication, but it's been a different sort of kind of expertise. But it's been amazing so far.
Oh, it's wonderful. It sounds like
Yeah.
an incredible job. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because if you think of things like, tax and working for Deloitte and merger and acquisitions,
Yeah.
those don't sound like traditional English literature type jobs that people might
Exactly.
think you go into. But you did your BA in English literature and theatre. That's right, isn't it? So
Yes.
if we kind of rewind to, when you were starting your BA and when you were choosing what subject to do, what was it that made you want to study English in the first place, or English and theatre?
I think mainly the communication sort of skill that English literature provides. I've always been interested in that, but more broadly, the diversity that it offers in very different ways. Like when I told my dad that I've got a job in tax, he couldn't believe it. He was really surprised. But you can, with an English literature degree, do so much. It offers you that flexibility to figure out what your specialism is going to be, which was really useful for me at the time because I didn't know what career path I wanted to take.
Mhm.
Um, I just always gravitated towards English at school because I was able to, I think, learn so much about my identity because I come from a multicultural background. And through literature, you study about so many different cultures and different topics. So it gives you that platform to learn so much more about the world that we live in, as cheesy as it might sound, but it is so important as well. Um, and I also had just moved to the UK when I started secondary school. So English for me in the beginning was a bit of a chore. I had to sort of get fluent at the language. I didn't really speak it that well. Um, and I did also have teachers actually that didn't think I would be able to study English at university level. But if you if you're really passionate about it can happen. And in my case, I was really appreciative of the diversity that the subject offered and how much I was learning, like being able to ask the right questions, being able to engage with different interpretations and learn about other people's experiences and storytelling. Those were the things that really drew me to the subject. And it's not just about learning the career skills, but those are also life skills, I think, that help you on a daily basis. Um, especially with empathy, which I think is what the world really needs right now. So yeah, I really enjoyed um, discovering different stories and being able to kind of put yourself in other people's shoes. And through that, I was learning about myself, whilst also gaining that integral skill in communication for the career that I would get into, which at the time I wasn't sure about still.
That's so interesting because I think it's quite a common experience for people who are drawn to English literature that yes, they might be drawn to it because they're good at it and they've got a facility for it. It's amazing to hear that that wasn't, that that was something that you had to develop from secondary school age
Yeah.
because my goodness, yeah, you definitely, I mean, you obviously worked really hard at that, but obviously you had a tremendous talent for it as well. But it's often a subject that people are drawn to because they're good at it and because they
Yeah.
enjoy it personally. And but it's really interesting to hear the ways, to hear you talk about how the kinds of skills that you develop as an English student also not only make you think about the world around you and learn about the world around you and how you want to be in that world, but they also are actually things that you can use in the workplace and that
Yeah.
are highly in demand. I think that's really interesting. It sounds like that's, quite part of your experience. And I was interested just kind of, I mean, maybe you could take us back. So you did your BA
Yeah.
in English literature and theatre. You graduated in 2020. That must have been quite a, I mean, July 2020 must have been quite a difficult time to graduate in some ways because that was right in the middle of COVID and
Yeah.
lockdown and like, how was that experience?
It wasn't easy, but in a way, it's just one of those things where it was meant to happen, I think,
Hmm.
because being stuck at home at lockdown, you had to think about what you could do in that space and time. And
Hmm.
job searching was really hard, because most companies weren't really searching in that moment and prior to that. But as I said, I was really unsure still of what I wanted to do career wise. I was really indecisive. So during lockdown, I got involved in a lot of free workshops that were going on at the time. And that enabled me to, I think, get more of a sort of job prospect
Hmm.
perspective, and to really take the time to think about what is it that I want to commit the beginning of my career to. And I got engaged with a workshop about how to pitch documentaries, and I really loved it. And I networked with the people that organized it. And from there, I started doing presenting, like freelancing. So I think my first interview was for Bloomsbury Publishing for an author called Zulfa Katuh, and she wrote a book called As the Lemon Trees Grow, and it was such a like amazing and inspiring experience that I wanted to continue it. So if I hadn't done that workshop during the lockdown, I probably wouldn't have really discovered that pathway. Um, and then eventually over time, I through sort of job applications, I landed a job at Pinewood Studios in film to support the presenting side of things. And I started off as a runner for the sound production team. So whenever we had to do the sound effects or the recordings with the actors, anything to do with sound and music for the films that they were working on, I would help support from an administrative perspective. But there was a lot of networking involved. So it wasn't planned at all, but I do feel like the circumstances sort of helped to push me in that direction.
That's really interesting. Yeah, it's interesting that you had the time and the opportunity to get involved in those workshops. I mean, I guess when you started doing that, you didn't necessarily know that you were going to develop a
No.
particular excitement or interest or skill in that area, but that's how it turned out. So that's interesting how you sometimes you have to sort of put yourself in the way of these things, don't you, and see what happens. That's really interesting. And that sounds like, I mean, those sound like quite like exciting and demanding roles to be doing. So that must have taken quite, lots of different skills actually that you were drawing on. I'm sure new ones as well as, ones that you developed on your degree. You mentioned your communication skills and things like that. That must have been part of the things that you learn on your degree must have been helpful to you there, and also maybe in actually putting together applications and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's really great. Fantastic. And so how did you, and so did you then, you applied for your current training position? Um,
Yes.
and and how did you feel? Do you feel that your kind of degree then has been useful to you professionally in all of these roles, in any of these roles? What sorts of, could you talk a bit more about those, that sort of relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been incredibly useful, and I think people do have a misconception of how useful an English degree actually is. They think that people just do an English degree because they love reading, but it goes so
Mm,
much more further than that. It teaches you the communication skills that can apply to whatever field you want to go into, and I think my career so far does show a little bit of that. I started in the film industry and I really loved it. It was really exciting, but I did sort of want to go more into the corporate side for my day-to-day job whilst doing presenting. So the communication skills were useful in film in terms of communicating with the clients, in terms of the storytelling side of things. And then my job after that was working for the UN. I started an internship for 6 months in as a communications intern. So again, it was very specific in the communications field and getting involved in the marketing projects. And then I carried on as a consultant, and again, it's client facing. You have to take complex ideas and briefs and be able to communicate that really in a simple way, and diverse ways for different projects and clients. And I unfortunately got um, I lost a role because of some funding issues, which tends to happen at the UN. So I did have a period of time where I was unemployed. But even in that period, I utilized my communication skills to be able to be successful in my job applications, knowing how to tailor your CV, how to change your applications for different types of roles, because I did have to apply for roles that weren't necessarily in communication.
mhm,
Um, and that's how I got into this job. Is I found the graduate program with Deloitte, which you didn't even need a finance background, so you can get
mm,
into with an English degree. Um, and it's still a client facing role. And I think communication is such a great skill to have in those types of jobs. And English literature does allow you to learn the sort of effective ways of communicating
mhm.
different content to different types of audiences. And so far I've worked in film and I've worked in the humanitarian and development space, and I'm working now in corporate finance. So it just shows that you can work in diverse fields. It's not going to corner you into the one specific space or just in the creative industries.
Mm.
And that just shows how integral I think communication in English is to the job market and the job space that we have now, and that these companies do respect people with an English degree, and
Mhm,
they do
mhm.
see the value in the skills that you come out with from university.
That's wonderful. No, that's really great to hear. Very encouraging for our students and for applicants as well to know that this is a really desirable degree. So it's not just about the skills that it gives you, but it's also about the perception of that degree in the workplace and that it's, it can be an advantage when you're looking for work. So that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Selena, for your time today. It's been really wonderful to reconnect and to hear more about what you're doing. It sounds amazing. And yeah, we wish you all the best for the future. So
Thank
thanks
you.
for making time for us today.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much. I really
Bye.
appreciate it. Bye bye.